I've been thinking about a lot of the people that have been kicked off the internet and cable news channels here lately. Obviously, the big news has been Tucker Carlson being fired from Fox News and, their number one star. It makes no sense. We'll go into more of that in a moment. But, I just been thinking about people. It started with Alex Jones getting kicked off of YouTube and deplatformed. That was really the first, I guess, shot across the bow that we all should have paid closer attention to. Of course, you can still go follow Alex over on band.video and infowars.com. He's managed to pick up the pieces and, kind of rebuild his empire on his own so that he wasn't reliant on other people. And he had a big enough following to pull that off. Not everybody does, trust me. And then they canceled Donald Trump from being able to post on Twitter and on YouTube platforms and all this stuff, Facebook, on and on and on. All the social media companies did that simultaneously. So then you go along a little further and they started banning philosophers off of YouTube. One of my favorite people to listen to, at least back then, was Stefan Molyneux. He used to bring up a lot of really great points. I wouldn't consider him right-wing at all, but they did. And they didn't like a few of the things they said, so canceled. And, he's still got a channel out there, his own little deal. But again, he didn't have a big enough following like Alex, so I don't think he's fared as well as Alex Jones did. Not very many people do. And of course, they're taking all Alex Jones's money through lawsuits and stuff like that anyway. So, I don't know what makes him get up out of bed other than trying to fight the New World Order. And that's what I try to do here on my channel. So I would imagine that channels like mine will cease to exist in the not too distant future. I've said a lot of things that are what I believe are to be true on my channel. And truth is a guaranteed way to trigger some woke leftard that's going to come in there, an SJW that's going to come in there and make it their mission to have your channel brought down. And they can do it. They have the power. And so, you fast forward a little bit, other people like Chris Ann Hall, constitutional attorney, got kicked off of YouTube, deplatformed. And she actually had a background in like biochemistry or something like that. And she was commenting on the COVID stuff at the time. Well, you can't do that unless you're Fauci or the CDC. So she was kicked off the platform. More recently, you get into this stuff with Fox News, like Bongino, a great political commentator, basically fired from Fox News because of the lawsuit, supposedly. I don't think that's the only reason they fired him. They just used that as an excuse. And then they fire their number one star, the guy that was bringing in by himself hundreds of millions of views. It makes no sense unless you're self-destructive or unless you're controlled by the New World Order. And a lot of people, I think, are missing this, what the deal is and why Fox fired Tucker. Personally, there's a lot of reasons I guess we could look at. He was exposing a lot of Biden's shortcomings, or actually they're not shortcomings, they're intentional attacks on the United States of America, opening up the border wide open, getting rid of the Keystone Pipeline, shutting down domestic drilling and demanding we all switch over to fairy dust or whatever, or electricity, which we can't even provide all of the citizens currently. So how the hell is that going to work? They're never asked to explain any of that stuff. Tucker Carlson was calling them out all the time, every day, every night on his show. And I'm not a Fox News subscriber or any of that stuff. I don't even have cable TV. I haven't had it for years and years. I recommend you get rid of your cable if you still have it. But I would watch Tucker clips here on YouTube. It was great. It was a great place for me to see kind of what Tucker's take was. And I enjoyed watching that. But I guess that's all gone now. One of the voices for truth and freedom and classic traditional Americanism was just booted off of the cable news networks. Is it going to end up being like Budweiser and they're going to regret their decision and try to pull back and create some, anti-woke patriotic commercial to trick us all into, it's Budweiser. Yeah, the king of beers. Yeah, the Clydesdales. Oh, yeah, American patriotism. Are they going to pull a move like that? Or are they just going to watch their stocks continue to plummet? I've heard they've already lost over $1 billion in value at Fox News since they fired Tucker. Unbelievable that you would do this. maybe the reason they did it is because their owners that own a big portion of their company, like something like 40 some odd % of their stocks are owned by BlackRock. And Tucker was critical of BlackRock. Could that have been it? Could it have been the fact that he was calling out the LGBTQ transgender nonsense that's going on all around our country, polluting our minds of our children all around the country, and nobody seems to be doing anything? Here was Tucker, a voice of reason, speaking out into the ether, where we could listen if we wanted to, we could change the channel if we wanted to. But the Democrats don't have that mindset, see? It's okay for them to push their poison on all of your kids, not only at the public libraries, but in the classrooms, in the school libraries. They must push this poison on your kids. And that's fine. That's normal. See, that's free speech. But when Tucker or any other person that has a even slightly conservative viewpoint comes out and says anything against what's going on in the country currently, they're banned. They're taken down. Here on YouTube, I guarantee you, I can see the day when it happened. When I started talking back against the CCP, the China virus, the COVID-19, when I started talking back against that, that's when my views plummeted. And it wasn't that the people didn't want to see it, it was that YouTube suppressed my viewpoint. They're doing this all over the internet on every major platform. Well, excluding Rumble, but Rumble, I don't know. Personally, I can't seem to draw any traction over there on my own. Now, again, I think it's a numbers thing. People like Steven Crowder, they had a big following here in the millions on YouTube. So even if only half of them went, they automatically got a couple of million people to come over there. So I'm a smaller potato. I can't do that. I can't seem to get traction on Rumble, and that's fine. I'll just, occasionally put videos up over there that I can't put up on YouTube because of their, guidelines and restrictions and things like that on speech. You're not allowed to have certain viewpoints. So, maybe it was all that stuff. Maybe Tucker was exposing too much truth and the mainstream media couldn't compete with that. That's exactly what was happening. And, they had to get rid of him. So everyone, including AOC, like 2 or 3 days before Tucker was fired, before it was announced he was fired, I think AOC already knew it. And that's why she came out and was saying, oh yeah, we got to get rid of Tucker Carlson for, what did she say? Violent speech or something like that, inciting violence or something like that with his speech and his rhetoric and all this stuff, even though you can play the video. If it's still on YouTube, I don't know. But there was a clip where all the Democrats were talking about, going out and getting violent, getting in people's faces, not ever letting them have any peace. Maxine Waters was one of them, several of them. I bet even AOC has said some things that could be construed as a call to violence. And yet, she's calling out Tucker Carlson because he's been very critical of her. He's also been very critical of Biden. And to get to the cut to the chase here, the reason I think they're doing this is actually a form of election interference. Biden doesn't look good. I just heard the polls a day or two ago. 70% of the people in the United States do not want him to be president again. So that's not good. And something like only 41% of the Democrats support him or something like that. So it's not very high. Even among his own people, they don't want him. And they claim that if it ends up being Biden and Trump running in 2024, then the young people vote turnout is going to be really low. And I can imagine that would be true because no one is inspired by Biden. So what does that mean? That means they're going to have to do a whole lot more 2020 type stuff to make Biden keep his job. And so they're not sure they can pull that off. They barely pulled off the last one. But anyway, I better not say anything else about that or else I'll get banned because I'm not allowed to have that opinion. One of the opinions that Tucker was talking about, he wasn't promoting it, but he had people on that disputed the 2020 election. And you're not allowed to do that on any platform. So anyway, yeah, another good guy gone. Now, am I saying that Tucker's not going to bounce back from this? Of course he will. I believe he will. He'll probably come out even bigger and stronger after this. But the real problem is I've heard that because Fox paid him out the remainder of his contract, that basically he's sitting idle right now. He can't do anything other than he can make moves to set himself up for his whatever his next broadcasting endeavor is going to be, but he's not able to actually broadcast anything. At least that's my understanding because of the contract. He was, he signed a contract with Fox. They paid him the remainder to keep him quiet. Why would they do that right now? Well, We've got 2024 elections coming up real soon. They were already tearing Biden to shreds for his, election announcement, his intention to run announcement being done online in such a way, because he knows that he's not going to be able to draw a crowd that's going to video well in the eyes of the media. And now he doesn't have the COVID-19 excuse anymore. You remember the rallies that Biden was having where he'd have maybe 20 or 30 chairs and they were all, 6 to 10 feet apart, and it was a ruse, guys. And they're worried because they don't have COVID-19 anymore. Although I have heard there's a new strain going around now, so look out, Jack. They may try to, who knows what they may do. I don't want to say anything else about that either, but they may kick out another one. Let's just put it that way. I'm hearing all this stuff about biolabs all over the world. Everywhere we go and some kind of skirmish happens, then suddenly there's a biolab discovered there. That's who's funded it? Oh, the good old US of A. See, that's how we're getting around a lot of these rules and regulations. You're not allowed to do this sort of stuff here in the United States, at least not on the same level. So they're sending them all over the world to these third world countries. Who knows what kind of testing they're doing amongst the populations of these places. I mean, we're talking about evil, evil sons of bitches. Victoria Nuland, she went down to Sudan. Guess what? A couple of days later, revolution, civil war, everybody's dying, blood all over the place. Everywhere Victoria Nuland goes, dead bodies pile up behind her. And yet, she's been in the back pocket of George Bush, Barack Obama, Joe Biden. I don't think she worked for Trump. I'm not sure about that, but I wouldn't be surprised if she wasn't somewhere in the back, in the underbelly departments of the government where Trump didn't notice her. But Biden put her front and center. She's out there orchestrating this whole World War III thing that's going on right now. So, yay, Victoria Nuland, the warmonger. Yeah, we've seen how Iraq worked out. We've seen how Ukraine is working out. Let's get involved in some other skirmishes and wars around the country, Victoria. Everywhere she goes, there's a revolution, or a color revolution as they call it afterwards. But anyway, I digress. Back into the Tucker thing. If you had a top salesman at your company that was, maybe a little bit hard to control because he had his own way, but he was a top salesman year after year after year, you could count on this guy to bring you in the big sales, the big money. You learn to tolerate and put up with some of that stuff to a point. I mean, obviously, if it's like, something that's hurting other people or something like that, then that's no good. But if it's just, a different opinion that can be debated, that's open for debate, then it's not a question of right or wrong. It's a different opinion. We're all allowed to have them, right? We used to be. But now you're not. Now you're being told to conform to the new control. And that's what happened with Tucker. He was one of their best, if not their best salesman there on Fox News, bringing eyeballs onto their channel, selling memberships, and now that is plummeting. You don't do that. As a business owner, you don't do that under any circumstances. Do you just go and cut the feet out of your number one salesman? Even if the guy is a little bit hard to handle and control, you put up with it because that's where your money comes from. At least until you can get a reasonable replacement, So anyway, guys, Fox appears to be committing suicide. And I wanted to touch on something else that I think is a big deal that I don't know, it just hit me like a ton of bricks a while ago when I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about today on this video about Tucker and the media and the cancel culture and all that stuff and how it never dies. No matter how bad it is, no matter how bad Budweiser stocks fall, 3 years from now, they'll do some other thing that's just as bad or worse. No matter what Fox does here, they'll do the same thing 2 or 3 years in the future. When they forget about it, they'll do the same sort of deal. They'll fire one of their number one stars over some BS woke politics. They do it over and over and over. Or they'll go even further in the pocket of BlackRock and other ESG scores and stuff like that. And they'll have no choice but to do that to get a good social score. So anyway, this is globalism. This is the New World Order taking hold of our country and everything else. And I don't like it none. And I don't think a lot of you guys like it either. But no one's doing anything about it. I'm not sure that the elections are ever going to be able to fix any of the problems we actually have. So it's a moral issue, a question of morality and the ability to debate people that are on the opposite side of the aisle from you, and not get all irate and crazy with them and want to fight them, but instead have a cordial debate. You know, that stuff's all gone now. You're either on the side of the woke or you're a violent extremist. Even if you don't do anything violent, they think your words and your thoughts are violent. That's a true story. They really believe this. They have convinced an entire generation or two that words are violence, and that some words should never be said and some should be banned altogether. So anyway, that's the world we're heading towards. And I was just thinking about how I noticed it first with Drudge, something that was, it's a sinister attack that most people aren't paying attention to, but I noticed it first with Drudge Report. It used to be, 10 years ago, the Drudge Report was a news aggregate that kind of focused on a lot more conservative leaning values and views. They weren't 100%, but they were a lot better. And then at some point within the last 5 or 7 years or so, Drudge sold the Drudge Report to, I'm assuming, some, insider, unnamed liberal backer. Probably somebody associated with BlackRock or Vanguard or some other big shot company like that controls the media. Or George Soros. I mean, at a certain point, when you're selling a piece of property or a piece of, real estate or something like that, at a certain point, you don't care who the buyer is. You just care about getting the money you want out of the thing. And I think that's what happened with Matt Drudge. He built up a conservative empire, basically started out going after Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton when no one else would. And it was courageous. It was great. It was a good newspaper, a good place to go get your news every day. And then it got sold out. And slowly over time, they don't do it all at once, but slowly over time, they shifted away from the news sites they had been using and citing on a regular basis, and instead shifted over to more, MSNBC, CBS, Yahoo News, and other leftist organizations, Huffington Post and places like that. They focused more on them, since then. And a lot of people that were conservatives didn't realize it. They just kept watching and kept citing the Drudge Report, and I still go there once in a while just to see what they're talking about, but I know it's going to come from pretty much every news article is going to come from a leftist slant. Instead of in the past, it would have come from a right slant. And there just aren't very many news sources like that left out there that are right-leaning, conservative valued newspapers. Just not very many at all. So anyway, I say that to say this. Fox News has been doing the same thing for the past, 5 to 7 years. The whole Never Trump movement, they were a big part of it. The people they put on their show were a big part of it. Echoing a lot of the same talking points that the leftist media has been echoing. They've been doing it slowly and subtly and whispering it and hitting it here and there. They haven't been doing it so directly. But now they're doing it more directly by firing their number one star. Just unbelievable. And again, I think Tucker's going to bounce back just fine. He may build a mega empire that totally dominates the news circuits and all this stuff. I hope he does. But it's going to take time to do that. And right now we're going into 2024. So that's one less person that Biden's going to have to worry about being critical of him. So look out, guys. My prediction is this is the ugly head of censorship. And anytime it rears its ugly head, it goes after multiple targets. So, Bongino, Tucker, all the other people I mentioned, all the way back to Alex Jones, they're all connected in that way. They were telling the truth, too much truth. And I believe the truth can set you free. I believe we all should be seeking the truth. But, for whatever reason, most of these Americans out here aren't seeking the real truth. They're not doing the research. And it doesn't matter who your favorite commentator is. You should always go and follow up on those stories and find out if they're telling you the truth or exaggerating the event or whatever, because there is a lot of that going on both sides. But that's why the media is broken. Operation Mockingbird is in full effect, as I've said many times. If you don't know about Mockingbird, please go look it up. It was when the CIA took over the news media. And they never relinquished control. They may have changed the name and changed the funding, and it went to shadow funding instead of direct funding from the federal government, but they were successful. They took and infiltrated the media back in the 50s or 60s, I believe it was, 1960s, I think. They infiltrated the news media, every single news organization there was, and they never let go of that power. Tyrants never do. They only tighten their grip. They never relinquish power. They only take more. So hang on, guys. It wouldn't surprise me one bit if they don't start rounding people up in every nearest city one day and saying, here's the train car, get in, we're going to take you to Disneyland. And people are just going to be right there on their phone going, oh, this is great. This is great. They're going to stick you with a vaccine, unproven, untested vaccine before you get in the cattle car. And then they'll have video cameras inside, viewing your reactions and stuff like that. And then when you get to the modernized version of Auschwitz, you'll be going, oh, shit. Oh, shit. I trusted the wrong people. By then, of course, it's way too late. They're marching you into the gas chambers and marching you out to the wall in front of the firing squad. And that's after they, work you to death doing whatever they want you to do. Mining their lithium, maybe, for their solar batteries. I don't know, but I can see the writing on the wall. The United States that I grew up in no longer exists. We live in some sort of a totalitarian nightmare that most people are unwilling to even look at. They've lost the ability to debate anything. They're not willing to come out and even debate people that disagree with their views. They just start shouting and screaming and burning cities down and stuff like that. So, yeah, guys, you better get ready. The New World Order has tightened its grip up. I feel it. I know you do too. We may all be canceled before it's all said and done. So until then, I stand for liberty. I hope you do too. Stand for truth too. Go out and do your own research on this. I'm not BSing you on any of this stuff. It's way worse than I'm even saying. Appreciate you tuning in. Hang in there. It's going to be a rough ride. We'll see you next time.